Rich, you're right on time.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Bay Area Content Marketing Meetup. Today, I'm really excited. Two good friends and my good friends are here today. We're going to talk about Twitter chats. When I open up the Twitter app in the afternoon and I'm checking the feed, I'll often see Todd and Bernie tweeting, and then I'll often see a hashtag. And so I'm like, oh, they're on a Twitter chat. So these two guys are very active. They're going to share with us the secrets of Twitter chats. I love this little line here. Two friends who met on Twitter are going to provide their perspectives. I also met the two of them on Twitter, and then the three of us got together in person at Content Marketing World in Cleveland in 2019. Maybe we'll get together in Cleveland in 2021. We'll see. Without further ado, Todd and Bernie, take it away.
Yeah, so I'm Tod Cordill out in Portland, Oregon, and Bernie, I'll go ahead and flip the slide and you can take it on, unless you got anything on this slide to say.
No, good. And Bernie Fussenegger in Louisville, Kentucky. And all right, I'm going to start off with just a question. How many people on here have actually participated in a Twitter chat before? I know, like John has, Rich, I know Shane has. Okay. All right, so let's jump in. So, what are Twitter chats? And the way I look at Twitter chats, it is a Twitter conversation that is centered around a hashtag. And you really have to have that hashtag to follow the conversation, to be part of the conversation, and really understand what's going on within that Twitter chat. Think of these as recurring weekly. The majority are weekly at the same time, same hashtag every week. There is, and each of the chats, you'll find out that there's specific topics that are kind of related for each chat. And, some of them are going to center around digital. Some of them will be social. Some of them will be about life or soccer or football. There is a chat out there for absolutely any topic that you can think of. And there's a community really around, around that topic, which is pretty cool. All chats are generally has a host. And usually there is a guest that is kind of like the expert or subject matter individual that, really all the questions are kind of directed to, even though anyone can answer a question for that chat. And in my opinion, I think chats are one of the most underrated peer-to-peer engagement for learning, for sharing, for growing community, for building relationships. And, when I did find chats, I mean, that's one of the first things that I thought was, my gosh, there's nothing else out there where I can learn every single week within that community. And if you participate in 2 or 3 different other ones, you have so many opportunities to meet like-minded individuals, people that are completely different with different views. But, the common theme is the community and the chat and that hashtag. All right, Todd. So, some of the big questions for a solo brand, for a brand itself, or even for your own personal needs. What are some of the benefits of participating in the chat, not only for yourself, but also for the brand? Really, you want to build trust and authority. This is a great way to increase your brand exposure. So a lot of the chats that, I'm in, you can do some analytics and understand the reach and the bandwidth, and you would be amazed at some of the impressions that you can get and the number of conversations, the number of one-to-one relationships, a lot of the engagement back and forth. And you'll have the answer and questions themselves, but you'll see a lot of side engagement going on between people that have become familiar with each other, know each other, asking, how's the day? How's the kids? How's the wife? How's the projects? In John's opinion, how's the motorcycle ride that you just spent 12 hours going up to Pennsylvania? But you get to know people, and it's, more personal, and it's, it's more than just a webinar or anything like that, but you truly get to know people. From a brand perspective, the great thing about chats is you get to be human. You get to put that face behind the brand so that, your audience, your community really gets to become one with you, understand who you are, understand who the person is, and really how you feel, how you think, and how you engage, and really build that community. Also, another great thing for a brand itself is you have the ability to listen, to engage, to ask questions of your consumers, of your audience, to really get their feedback in real time. So think of it as a real-time opportunity to engage back and forth, to learn more about, really, hopefully at this point, you're building that loyal community. And it's also a great way to stay informed from these individuals, great way to provide that value. And, you know, some of the side benefits of everything, all the benefits that we've talked about up to here, it's that ability to grow your following, to grow your community. And the thing that I really like best about all of this is, you know, when you are in a chat and you have that ability to go from the chat to in real life. And, you know, when you do go to real life, you've already started the relationship. You've already know something about the individual, and you just kind of carry on like you have known this individual for a long time. All right, Todd, next one. All right, who is at a Twitter chat? Great question. You have the host. So this is the person or the brand that owns the hashtag, the chat. They usually, on the most part, develop the questions. They set up the guest. They're the ones that are really the driving force behind the chat, the flow, the process, and all that. You have the guest, who is usually, like we said earlier, the subject expert, the person that you know, really is the one that's there to answer a lot of the questions. And keep in mind, you know, I'm talking about the guest answering the questions, but the other nice thing about chats is you've got all the participants themselves. So everybody has that opportunity to provide their feedback, to provide their insights, to provide their thoughts. And, you know, you're just supplementing what the guest may be having and, you know, that expert, but everybody else has, you know, different ways that they approach problems and different solutions. So, you know, that's a great way. Then the last one, you know, are the lurkers. And, you know, this might be individuals that are new to chats, may not understand what's going on, and they may just be introverted and shy and really don't want to jump in, and they're just checking out what's going on, you know, behind the scenes. All right, next. Okay. All right, on this next part, Todd and I are going to just kind of give you just a quick overview of, you know, kind of our Twitter stories, and this probably be a little bit more personal about where we are. So, you know, years ago, you know, I was on Twitter, and I just looked at it as I was following sports results, celebrities, athletes, and really not taking advantage of the platform at all. No engagement, no interaction other than, you know, I have an account and I'm following these people. So, you know, about 5 years ago, I decided, okay, I need to really jump in and figure out what chats are and really what Twitter is and how I can use it. So I started following, you know, like the Madeline Scholars, the Jay Bears, those type of individuals, to understand how they use Twitter, how they engage on Twitter, how they share their content, what their content is. And I really started developing lists to where every day I would go to that list and see what these individuals were doing. And it's not that I mimicked what they were doing, but I got a better understanding of how they were building community, how they were engaging with others, how they were lifting others up, how they were sharing others' content. So that started giving me ideas and insights of how I needed to form my Twitter personality, how I wanted to do my content. And the funny thing happened along the way, especially following Madeline Scholar. She's the host of Twitter Smarter. You know, this introduction to chat started coming in. I'm like, what is a chat and how can I participate? And, you know, one chat leads to another, and you start following, you know, people, connections from one chat to the next, and you really start building that relationship. So that's really where, you know, my approach changed 100% when I found chats and really start to understand the value of relationships on social, how to share on social, how to meet individuals, how to engage, and how to really support others while also trying to build my personal brand. So that kind of leads up to, so I do have my own Twitter chat. It's every Friday at noon Eastern Standard Time. It's Digital 360 Chat. And, you know, I started this in November of 2018. And the premise at that point was all digital marketing, social media, the audiences and customers. And for about 8 months, you know, I would have a guest with a topic very similar to the others. And what I started to find is, you know, a lot of the same topics are being covered in other chats, and how much of this is redundant, and how can I really make a pivot to where, you know, I'm getting more out of the chat, and and the, you know, the audience community is as well. So I flipped it on its head. And really, mine is more like a Twitter chat that's kind of a podcast. So I have a guest, and really the premise is and focus is on that guest and understanding who that individual is, where they are in their career, how they got there in their career, what they do in their community, more personal about them. What advice do they have for others that are, working for a company and wanting to go solo, and, any pitfalls that they have within their career and any advice that they could give others getting started. So really it was more to learn about, those that we are connected with, understand who they are, and more digging deep into, that connection and understanding and sharing that out. So it's more than just on the surface. So when you do see that individual out there, it's like, okay, well, there's Shane. She's in Louisville. This is her past experience. This is what she's been able to do. This is where she started. This is where she's at now. So you really understand and get to know these individuals. And, that's the thing about social. It's being on social, but it's also being social. And, any relationship that you have that's in real life, there is you're meeting that individual. You're wanting to know more. Social should be no different. So that's kind of the premise of mine and kind of my Twitter story.
Okay. Hopefully I didn't just click twice. So my Twitter story and my Twitter chat story are pretty much one and the same. If I look back about 10 years ago, I was running a small company. There's just a few of us in it, a little bit of manufacturing, customer service, a little bit of sales. I had this millennial working for me that went, and what I was doing, we were printing, having a printer print books, digital books, and selling them online. A photographer would upload their images for a wedding album, and we would print the books, bind the books, send it back. So it was kind of a printing industry kind of a thing with mixed in with e-commerce. And I had a millennial working for me that had worked at a printing company just before he came and worked with me, and he got exposed to print chat. And he was explaining it to me where he goes, yeah, a bunch of printers get together and they talk about business issues and all this. And I'm like, now here I am selling to photographers, or we were selling to photographers. And it's like, why would you want to do that? I just didn't get it. I was 40 something, I think, or early 50 something. He was 20 something. Just didn't get it. But at the time we were broadcasting out tweets on Twitter, Facebook, is our own promotional marketing. It wasn't super effective, but I knew enough about Twitter to be with our brand, broadcasting out, a little bit of interaction, but not much. Fast forward a few years from there, about 6 years ago now, I went out on my own with my own business, and I've got a lot of manufacturing background. And so my goal was to help manufacturing, primarily manufacturing, B2B in general, but kind of focusing on manufacturing and manufacturing rep companies, to help them with their demand generation. And printing companies are manufacturing companies. So I said, well, I'll kind of dig into this print chat a little bit and just kind of figure it out. And so I started lurking, started getting involved, started participating more. And once I started participating and actually meeting people and getting to know people online, I figured out that the lady who was hosting the chat lived literally about a half a mile from me, right directly across the river. It takes about 2 miles to get there because of the bridge, but she's just like right over there. I could almost yell at her. And here I am, there's printers all over the country. It was just like really eye-opening. It's like, oh, wow, okay. Kind of got involved in that. And about a year later, back up a little. So printing industry companies were not really my target because I had a printing company client that does a lot of national kind of business, not strictly local. So I really wasn't trying to bring on, because of conflict of interest and other reasons, wasn't really trying to bring on another printing company, but it was the community I was involved in. After about a year of engaging and expressing my opinion, which I've been known to do at a time or two, they invited me to start doing, the organization putting this on invited me to be a guest blogger on their website. And for the printing industry, printing equipment industry, it's a really well-known website. So I've been guest blogging there monthly for the last 3 years or so now. So that's print chat led me to that. I still go, I get involved in it, but not as continually as I do, but I am constantly writing in the industry. And what I write about for printing is really the cross section, the intersection of digital marketing and printing is kind of where I kind of focus most of my writing there. A lot of marketing automation that I write about. So that's print chat. Then I'm moving along, maybe 4 years ago, I needed, for some reason, I find it easy to find good graphic designers, but finding good writers has always been really difficult for me. Still, it's kind of is to say. Really difficult to find people I can work with and can kind of jump in. So I said, well, where can I find writers? Well, writing, it's content. I needed content. So I knew of CM World just from their blog. I believe probably is where I knew of them. And so I kind of started joining in on the CM World chat. And I didn't lurk nearly as long on that. I started kind of interjecting. It's not just about content. They write a lot of content strategy, digital marketing strategy in general are the topics of their chats. So I started kind of interjecting my opinion pretty often, and I agree with people, disagree, add on to what people say, but I'm really interactive and really got to meet a lot of people. And then CM World came around. I'm like, do I really want to go? And I didn't. The first year I was involved in the Twitter chat, I didn't go. The next year I was working with a colleague. We're both freelancers. She was actually in the Cleveland area, and I met her once, just like 2 hours. She was in town, and she goes to CM World every year because she's there in Cleveland. So I said, okay, I'm going to go to the real event. I'm going to go. She's there. We can meet face to face, which we never really do. We'll be able to go to the event, and I went. And it was just amazing, all the people that I knew. I mean, it was just all just new people from the Twitter chat, and just walk down and see badges, you'd recognize faces. And actually, one of the people, actually the first person before the event, back up just a hair, on CM World, I met somebody, and she mentioned the weather in Portland or something, and her name is Carmen Hill. And so I said, oh, Portland. And so I tweeted at her, say, hey, I'm Portland too, and got to know each other. And that connection point, you just kind of start, interacting a lot, and figured out that what she was really good at. And I did bring her in with the client, and she did a couple projects with the client with me. So I did fulfill my goal of finding writers on Twitter chat. Go to CM World, meet people, see people face to face. I kind of came up with this idea popped in my head. It's like when you meet people online and then you go and see them in real life, it's hugs instead of handshakes, pre-COVID, of course, but it really is. You see them and it's just like you're already friends. You already got a strong relationship formed with them the first time you ever see them in real life. And many people that I'm pretty good online friends with, I don't think I'll ever will meet in real life. The other thing I started trying to do when I travel, when I travel alone, mostly business travel, which I don't do a lot, but when I go to cities, I try to meet, see if I can have coffee or lunch with people that I've met on Twitter. And that's actually how I met Dennis. I saw Dennis online. I knew, on CM World chat, we interacted some. I knew he was in the Bay Area. I'm from the Bay Area, so flew down to meet my family. I kind of wanted to schedule a trip, and Dennis is probably 15 minutes from the San Francisco airport. So I flew in right before lunch, hopped in a car, went and had lunch with Dennis. And we didn't close the bar down, but it was a lunch place. We closed the lunch place down. I think it was maybe 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They'd been closed for an hour, sweeping around us. And I think Dennis is a regular, so they let us stay. But we decided it was time to go. And in the same trip, I went to San Francisco and met SF Erica. What's Erica's last name? SF Erica. Another person really involved. She has a chat on Monday. And I went to San Francisco and spent the afternoon with her. So I've tried to solidify those relationships when I can, meeting person to person. And one of these days, I'm going to get to Louisville and have some of Bernie's chicken wings, his spicy chicken wings. It's on my list. So that's my Twitter story, which is the same as my Twitter chat story.
Question for you, Todd.
Yes.
By the way, I put a link in the chat, which is a photo of us at Bonchon Chicken Wings in San Mateo.
Yeah.
Yes, Bonchon. The question is, CM World Chat, you were famous during the icebreaker period of cracking a joke. I think it was often a pun. Do you still do that?
Not as much. So yeah, that's a really good point, Dennis. And that actually helped. That did help me grow my network. So what I would do is I would find, the first year or two, probably 2 years that I was involved in CM World, it's like, okay, nobody knows me from squat. What can I do? And so I would look ahead of time of what is the topic of the chat, and I would go find a marketing pun, or I'd rewrite a marketing pun more often that was related. So I'd find a marketing pun that was kind of related to the topic, and right at like a minute before the chat would start, I would throw the pun out there, and I got more interaction and more likes, probably more followers from that little thing that I did for a couple of years than anything else I've done. And so I kind of ran out of jokes. I did a lot of research. Kind of a couple Saturdays, I found all the marketing puns I could, and I really didn't want to keep repeating them. So, some I have kind of repeated, or I rewrite them just to be relevant to the topic of the day. So Dennis, I still do it, but it's way less often than I used to.
Got it. And John left a parting comment, which for you, he had to run, but he said your puns are legendary and awful.
I find more than I write. Okay, put it that way. Yeah, I won't take that personally. John, I know you're gone.
Well, he said not awful.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, did I?
All right.
There you go, Bernie.
All right, to jump back into the chats themselves. So, when you look at the chat format itself, there are 4 basic types of participants that you have. You have those that are engaging, that add value. And the nice thing about chats, like I've mentioned kind of earlier, it's the different perspectives that people bring to the table, that bring to the chats, and really, the collaboration, the engagement that everybody has with each other, and the ability to share that information. So you've kind of got that group, and Shane's excellent at this, Todd's excellent at this, Dennis definitely, and John. I mean, those are people that I've engaged with so much over the last year, but they are so good at bringing that different perspective as well, that not everything is exactly the same. You have those that kind of like to acknowledge others, and what does that mean? They're liking, they're retweeting, they're sharing, and they're also potentially validating some of your statements. So you may have a comment and they're coming in behind you and replying to your comment with a little bit more insight into what you said and adding more to it. You have those that are semi-engaged, and there's days, weeks that I put myself definitely into this, where I've got a meeting going over here, I've got a Zoom call over here, I'm bouncing back and forth. I may answer a question or two, jump over to another one, answer something else, and I'm there but not there 100%, but still trying to be part of that community. Then once again, we're back to the lurkers, and lurkers aren't bad, but they are the observers. And the nice thing, when I host my own chat, it's funny because I know who all the lurkers are, because with the tools that I have, you can see who's liking, who's retweeting, and who's not commenting whatsoever. So they're there, and you appreciate that they're there. And there's nothing wrong with the lurker. So I don't want anybody to think lurking's wrong. There's nothing wrong whatsoever with lurking. All right, on the next one, how do you leverage the Twitter chat to grow your community? Some of the things that I did with mine: create a list, put all those individuals that are in that chat into that list, follow the host, follow the guest, follow all those participants, engage with those individuals outside of the chat, understand what it is. So that's where the list comes back in. You can put each chat with each list for each one, so you know what those individuals are doing, what they're sharing, what their content is, and it makes it really easy to continue that engagement and to continue that follow up with those individuals after the chat. And so you're not just waiting for the chat, you're taking it outside the chat as well. And I think on this one, with any community that you're in, whether it's a Facebook group, whether it's a LinkedIn community, LinkedIn group, something that you're doing networking, that's in real life. There's always do's and don'ts to, everything that you're doing. And while in a chat, definitely always stay on topic. It's always good to, I guess it's more of a reward, or, you're acknowledging by liking others, by replying, by retweeting. Respect is a big thing with any community organization that you're in. So show respect for others, show respect for others' opinions. You can always disagree. There's nothing wrong with it to add your opinion. And that's where the respect comes in. So, as you do that, other people are going to respect your opinion back. The big thing, support everybody that's in this community, pay it forward, give back to them, lift them up, share their content outside of this. I mean, it's all about building that community, being engaged, and, being part of something. And, you would support your friends. This is no different. One area that, I struggle with at times, especially when the chat is going crazy, is, frantically trying to type something, and then you understand, you see that you spelled something correctly and you didn't use the correct grammar. It's difficult, but try as much as possible, to use the right grammar, to use the right spelling and all that, and use all caps sparingly, and always use that hashtag. The big thing with any community, especially chats, don't promote, don't sell yourself. This is not about you. This is about the community. So you're there to share with others. You're not there to say, this is Bernie, this is what I do, and my opinion is the only thing that matters. Have respect for others. Don't bash other people. Don't, put negative comments. Don't bully, nothing like that. I mean, none of that's tolerated. And I'm pretty sure you probably will get called out by somebody who's saying, hey, you need to chill it and quit doing that. It's not all about proving your point over and over and over and over. Other people, give them, their stage, especially the guests themselves. This is the person that's there. So respect that individual. Don't try to take it away from them. Don't freak out if you do see a misspelling or something that's grammatically not correct. Like I said, some of these chats, you could look at the tools, and you're seeing a chat, and next thing you know, it's gone, and you've replied, and it's like, oh my gosh, where to go? What do I do? Relax. It's not that big of a deal. And don't tweet in all caps, and don't use too many hashtags, and don't hijack the tweet or hijack the chat. And really the last things that we have, or at least that I'm going to cover, what are some of the tools that you need? And the tools that I use that help me, or at least follow along, Tweetdeck is my friend. It's the thing that I use absolutely every day. I turn on my computer. Tweetdeck's the first thing I turn on. I set up the columns that have the hashtags that I want to follow for the day. At a chat, you can set it up to follow the guest, the host. It's very easy. You got to definitely have Twitter. You've got to be patient, and you've got to have fast fingers. Another thing, participate in a few chats before you jump in. Get an understanding, get a feel for it, so that you feel comfortable about what it is that you're doing. Ask lots of questions. Don't be afraid to join in. Don't be afraid to engage with others. Don't be afraid to reach out to others. I mean, that's all part of this community, and the community building that you have is that ability to engage and take those communications and engagements out of the chat itself. Follow the hashtag is probably one of the biggest things that you can do. If you don't follow the hashtag, you're not going to see the questions. You're not going to see the replies. You're not going to see the comments. So, that's a very, very important part. Back to the respect. I've always said, what good is knowledge and experience if you're not willing to share it with others? This is an extension of that. Share your knowledge. If we're not learning every day, then, we're putting up a wall. So, take that approach as well. You're there to learn, you're there to share, and most importantly, engage and have fun. These are supposed to be fun. They're not stressful. Meeting people's fun, sharing with others is fun. So, keep that in mind. Chats are fun, and it's a great way to build community in a fun way.
Okay, and with that, did I unmute? Yes, I did. With that, just gonna go. I am going to take us through my routine. Hopefully this is big enough to kind of come through. So I participate. Some weeks I don't participate in any. Some weeks I participate. Usually it's between 2 to 4 chats or so that I participate in. So when I jump in, I don't jump in. I want to be able to just prepare really fast for a chat and get off and running. So what I do is I use Tweetdeck. There's some other tools out there that I've used in the past, tchat.io. There's another tool that was decent. But I quit using all those and I just have gone to Tweetdeck, which is at tweetdeck.twitter.com. It was a separate product Twitter bought them years ago. So I'm going to go through some really detailed tactics here, but not take much time on it. So I've actually got a workspace, I got a browser group for Twitter chats, and I right click on this and I say open all in new window. So I've got my, what that does is that opens up my browser to be in my Twitter chat mode. And so what I do, well, I'll go back here. So what I have in here is I've got TweetDeck. You can see TweetDeck in the first, this show, I don't know if that'll show up. TweetDeck at first, then I have a Twitter notifications, Twitter analytics, which they don't really look at, but it's kind of nice after the chat to kind of get a feel for engagement. And then because TweetDeck doesn't have emoticons and emojis in it, I've got a few emoji tabs set up, the emojis that I use pretty frequently. So here's what TweetDeck looks like. Very left is where I'm interacting, and you can, if this down here, stay open. This can be really tactical. It's gonna be too much detail for some of you I know, but I'm gonna go fast. So the left tab is notifications. So when somebody tags me, I'd like to interact. If somebody replies to one of my tweets, I'll see it here, and I always want to give people positive feedback. So if somebody retweets something I do or replies to me, I'll immediately like it. So I actually frequently spend more time on this left notifications tab, and that's where I'm interacting with people. Because the main chat, the front wave of it, leading edge, you can never really interact with people looking at that because it's just too fast moving. So I call this a side chat, and this is where I spend time. This is the main chat timeline. So in TweetDeck, I put the hashtag for the chat up here, and this automatically keeps populating with the latest tweets. And there'll usually be 15 to 30 tweets a minute probably coming in on a typical busy chat, a little slower on some, a little faster on others. So this is just the hashtag there. This is the same, this column is what is the host timeline. I like to keep an eye on what the host is doing because they're the ones that are putting up questions. And they're also interacting with people. So if the host interacts with somebody, says great idea or whatever, I'll often open that up and I'll like the tweet, I'll interject into the conversation there around that. And so to set this host timeline, you put the Twitter chat hashtag up here, and then in the tweet author, you just put the host name, who's the Twitter handle of the host, and that populates this. So this is always going on. Then I've got a messages tab, and this is just for messages. I have never used that during a chat until yesterday. I was a guest on a SEMrush chat, and they actually told me when they posted questions because the questions come and go really fast in this main chat timeline. So that's how I set up TweetDeck. Pretty simple. Took me a long time. The reason I wanted to share this is it took me 2 or 3 years to get this process down. It's so obvious when you look at it, but this really works well for me. So as the chat begins, I try to show up on time. A couple minutes early when I was posting puns, as Dennis brought up. But it's okay to come in late. If you have to come in late, come in late. Everybody's, it's not a meeting that it's not going to start till everybody's in the room. It's rolling along. You might get a phone call and miss 20 minutes of it, or you might have to leave early. That's all okay. It's okay to show up late, but try to show up on time. One of the main reasons for that is often mini chats start with an icebreaker, or they'll do both. They'll say, introduce yourself in the very beginning, and it's your chance to tell the community who you are. It's your chance to do a little elevator speech. I generally just copy my Twitter profile and paste it in there, and then do a little editing to make it relevant for the topic or the the topic of the chat or the topic of the day. And then definitely engage in the icebreaker. There's most chats, probably 2/3 of them have an icebreaker where they ask a question, and that's where you can kind of learn about people. It could be anything from favorite dessert to favorite music to the last place you travel. Who knows? It's, you know, the icebreaker is just a kind of a fun way to get throw something in. Comment. It's a good time to comment. You can really learn a lot about people in that icebreaker. Okay, during the chat, I showed you the columns how I have set up, and I'm kind of going back and forth between those 3 columns. Most of my time ends up being on the left where I'm engaging with people. The middle one is kind of where, you know, I do look for things. Or when I quit engaging the left column, I go back to the middle column, the main chat. During the chat, the format's always the same. The host puts out a question, the guest answers it, but many of the participants too, if you have, you know, if you have an answer to the question, go ahead, you know, it's your chance to shine. It's your chance to kind of let the community know when you have something to input, but don't just randomly answer a question if you don't really have anything to add. If you do nothing but like and reply to people and say, good comment, good idea, I didn't think of it that way, thanks. You know, that's enough engagement to be involved. So usually, almost every time, you'll know the chat's getting ready to start when you see this kind of a message. You know, just telling you the format of the chat. And during the chat, it's okay to say hi to people. You know, just you see somebody there, you know, just say hi. It's cool. And I like to, one thing I do, or I've kind of figured this all out over time, is to kind of have your own style. Just, you know, if you can come up with a style, you know, one thing I was doing was those puns before the chats. If you can come up with your own style and be consistent, it's like, it's your personal brand, and people recognize it. So one thing I like to do, I use a lot of white space in my tweets. That really lets the message, you know, the main points really show up when you use white space. So here's just an example of one, and it depends was kind of my main part of the message. So I always try to leave white space above the main point I'm trying to make. The other thing is to use bullets, and that's the main reason I have that tag for the emojis is I like to use this light check mark. And so if I found for engagement, if you can, and it's like any kind of content, if you can bullet the list, it's going to draw more attention and get more engagement. And I'll sometimes take somebody that has a really good chat, but it's like a paragraph, dense text. I'll sometimes pull out and I'll retweet it, pulling out a few main points and put it in a checklist for them. But it's kind of my brand, you know, people that you kind of get used to what people are doing, and this kind of people people will recognize, you know, that know me, recognize kind of my style there. The other thing is hashtags. Just in general on Twitter, it's not good to put in, it's not like Instagram where you put in 20 hashtags. There's not enough characters to do that anyway. I do like to mix in hashtags. I actually mix in hashtags, and every now and then I'll do 1 or 2 words all caps just to make them stand out. I'll never tweet entirely in all caps, but I might do all caps to make a word stand out. The other thing with hashtags is I use this don't just do stuff quite a bit. So if you have a personal hashtag you like to use, I've got a few hashtags that I've kind of made up myself. I'll mix them in. So if you click on this, I'll sometimes click on this and I can go back and see where I've used it. Very few other people use it. So it's kind of, it's part of my brand, but it's also kind of a way for me to keep track of what interesting tweets I may have made. And then lastly, kind of pick your tone, you know, whatever your personality is. If you're a funny person, be humorous. If you're serious, you just like to add value, just be serious and add value, but just pick your style, and you can change it. It's not something you're locked into. It's not like a blog for a law firm where it has to be super strict the same every week. You can mix it up, but go ahead and have, you know, speak like, you know, tweet like you speak. And then balance between answering questions. Don't try to take over the chat and have the answer for every question out there unless you're the guest, and really engage with people. Lastly, Bernie, you want to take this one on?
Sure. So really kind of in summary of all this, I hope you all have kind of seen what a Twitter chat is, what some of the benefits are, and would love to invite you to Content Marketing World. So you see the hashtag CM World. It's every Tuesday at 12 p.m. ET. It's hosted by Mo Wagner and the CMI team. You know, their topic is pretty much anything related to content, marketing. And, you know, the big thing to take away from all this is going from online to in real life. And the picture that you saw down there was when we did go from online to in real life and got to meet everybody at Content Marketing World. But really, that's kind of it. And it goes back to Todd's, you know, it's hugs and not handshakes when you meet in real life. And, you know, that's the side benefit of, really a huge benefit of Twitter chats themselves. But thank you all.
Thanks, Bernie. I think somehow Todd has dropped off. Maybe he will join us back in. But that was fantastic. Very useful and so many practical tips. If anyone has a question, feel free to use the chat or unmute yourself. I had a question, Bernie, and I actually, while you were talking, I found one of your tweets. So I'm going to put this in the chat. It's a question about, you mentioned there's a Twitter chat for everything. If someone's
Yes.
new and they're not aware that there's a chat on topic X, where do you go to look?
That's a great question. So Madeline Sklar, I keep mentioning her, she's Twitter Smarter. She's got a great list of chats, what the topics are. You can go on Google and do a search for Twitter chats, and you could pull up some resources, or you could go to the link that I have within, or that you put within the chat. And that's really a graphic that I made of, 15, 20 of them that I've participated. I don't do these every single week, but these are all excellent communities. They're a great way to share. They're great ways to engage. And really, once you start with one, and you see that engagement, and your Twitter feed actually begins to change because, of the algorithms. You start seeing people that you engage with and within chats, and they start filling up your feed, and you can see the hashtags that they're using, and you'll find a lot more chats that way as well.
Excellent. And I'm curious how you perceive, I know on CM World and a lot of other marketing Twitter chats, brands choose to have their community manager, social media manager tweet on behalf of the brand.
Right.
I'm curious, like at you as an individual, how do you perceive brands? Like what are ways a brand can do it well, but still remain kind of like personable, even though there's no name behind the brand per se, besides the company name?
Yeah, I think, as the brand builds up that community and builds up, that engagement, people start understanding, like even with CM World, Mo doesn't really have to come out and say that she's behind the brand, but because of all the engagement and, the first few years, she might have put something that said, Content Marketing World - here's Mo. You start understanding who they are. And as you engage with other brands, that Express Writers is going to be Rachel, that Taco Chat's going to be, I can't think of her name, but you start remembering who they are, but, their voice and their opinions follow that of the brand. And, that's very important that, as that person that they're not bringing in their perspective, they're there to represent the brand, but also they're the human element that you see.
Excellent. Todd has returned.
I returned. I don't know what happened. It just got locked out. Glad you're all here.
All right, so I'm going to go back to this one real quick. The photo that you see there was taken at CM World in 2019. And Todd, if you can go to the next one.
Sure.
And this is the one that I love. So, we had an activity outside of the conference itself. It included content or CM World. It included Content Chat, which is Erica held that she does on Mondays, and Taco Chat. And, this is just the community itself. And I'm really not sure what Todd and Dennis are doing in the background over to the back, but you can see, these are faces of people that are having fun, they're engaged, and this is what chats do as far as helping you, build that relationship, build that community, that when you do come together, it's not awkward, it's a lot of fun. And this was, and I'll be honest, this was the first conference in 2019 that I ever went to by myself, meaning I didn't take anybody else from work with me, and I did not know a soul from in real life. It was all, in chats. And once I got there, it made no difference whatsoever, and probably had the best conference that I've ever been to.
I think what's happening is Todd and I are both yelling at the photographer, probably like, take the photo already. That's what it looks like.
Yeah,
It's something. It's funny.
we were just in our own little moment there, Dennis.
All right, I saw that last slide.
Yeah, wraps it up.
Yeah, so tell us, both of you, where people can go to. Obviously, you have your Twitter handles, but beyond that, where can they go to connect with you guys?
Yeah, for myself, obviously Twitter, you go to B2the7. I've got my personal website, which is b2the7.com, and I'm also very active on LinkedIn. So if you do a search for Bernie Fussenegger, I should pop up there as well, and be happy to connect with you, engage with you. If you've got any questions outside of this, love to help you along with anything. Like I said earlier, don't be afraid to ask questions. That's what we're here for, and be more than happy to help in any way that I can.
Yeah, Twitter. For me, Twitter is probably the quickest way to get in touch with me is Twitter. I'm also Tod Cordill on LinkedIn. That's probably the next best. Those are the easiest ways. You can shoot me an email or something. You can find that on LinkedIn. I'll reply. But probably Twitter and LinkedIn are going to be the places where where your email won't go below the fold. So they're the best ways to get a hold of me. There's only one other Tod Cordill that spells his name the same as me in the country, so I'm pretty easy to find.
Excellent. Well, thank you both for joining us, and thanks everyone for attending. We will be meeting every Thursday at noon Pacific. Everyone stay safe out there, and we will talk to you next time.
Thank you all, and thank you very much for the opportunity, Dennis.
Sure thing.
Yes. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.